everyone. It's Dean here again. Just wanted to share with you another short video on how to improve your health and well-being. More specifically today, I want to talk about how to maintain or slow down the effects of aging. And firstly, I'd just like to thank Dr. Denise Furness and Dr. Christopher Shade for presenting the webinars that I attended recently. I'm going to try and, for you guys, I'm going to try and compress that information down from like 3 to 4 hours down to 15 minutes. All right, so here we go. Something I learned from them that I wasn't aware of is 2020 to 2030 is regarded as the decade of healthy aging. So let's keep that in mind as we go through this presentation and maybe use that as motivation for us to get ourselves sorted. All right, so just firstly, I want to tell you a quick story, okay? So I used to work as a guide on the Cape to Cape track in Western Australia, okay, and that was 132 k's long, and often I would host 10, 12, maybe 15 guests at a time, and we walk over 7 days. And this is regarded as an adventure holiday, and adventure holidays are becoming very popular for retired people, all right, so 60 plus. So one of the things I noticed was walking in a group, the speed is generally determined by the slowest walker, and this necessarily isn't the oldest or frailest looking person in the group. In fact, during the trek, I would discover, once I got to know the group, that the lifestyle by which an individual maintains largely determines their walking ability and subsequently is a barometer of their health. So think about that. Take a walk around on the beach, particularly over some rocks, see how you go, and that'll tell you a little bit about what's going on in your body. All right, to start with, you see this little picture here. We see the top arrow represents normal aging today, and the bottom arrow represents optimal longevity, okay, where the blue represents health span and the red represents age-related disease. And you'll see that optimal longevity being represented in the bottom part of the picture is what we're aiming for, okay? So greater health for a longer period of time with less disease or age-related disease. So where do we start? Okay, so the key to actually improve or maintain our health and slow down the effects of aging is by firstly reducing the effects of chronic disease. So how do we do that, you might ask? Well, the first thing is we need to consider that our body is made up of like 37 trillion cells, okay? That's a lot of cells, and each one of those is prone to being damaged. Now, if we can actually minimize the damage, then we're going to improve our lifespan. Now, what do you mean by damage, you might say? Well, what we actually mean is inflammation, all right? So, when you get a cut or a bruise, what you might see is redness, you might even see swelling, you might even experience some level of heat. So that's actually what's called inflammation. Now, the trouble is, this stuff goes on in our body all the time, and our body's own antioxidant system puts out the fire regularly. And our ability to put out that fire is largely determined by our lifestyle. In other words, what we eat, how we exercise, how much water we take, how many calories we have. The list goes on, and I'll endeavour to delve into that a little bit further today. All right, so first thing we need to think about is reducing or decreasing our exposure to chemicals and toxins, okay? Because if we actually expose ourselves to, food that's not the best, okay, i.e. processed food, that actually requires a lot of work by the body to detoxify it, in many cases can encourage inflammation, okay? So if we can actually reduce our dietary intake of processed foods, then we're off to a great start. So what do we do instead? If we're taking away processed foods, we need to introduce more fresh fruit and more veggies into the diet. Okay, I'm sure you've heard that before. And if at the end of the day we determine that we have any sort of dietary shortcomings, then we may introduce some specific supplementation to take care of that accordingly. What's next? Okay, so what is this healthy diet I keep talking about? All right, so how does it do it? A healthy diet balances the appropriate amount of nutrients across all food groups and provides enough energy in order that we don't increase our weight or we don't lose weight. Okay, so we maintain a nice healthy balance. And what sort of diet is most appropriate for that? Well, the Mediterranean diet, which you've probably heard before, has been studied over and over and over, and it seems that that is the best way to go. Now, what is the Mediterranean diet? The Mediterranean diet is to start off with, has lean protein. Okay, so lean protein means chicken, beef, lamb, etc., preferably organic without antibiotics or hormones. And if we're going to have white fish or oily red fish, we try and make sure that it's wild caught. Okay, with our fruit and vegetables, preferably we like to eat across all colours. Okay, do not exclude any one colour. Let's walk into the supermarket and buy reds, greens, yellows, whites, etc. They're all there. It's just a matter of figuring out how to use them. Also too, let's eat some nuts, some seeds, whole grains, and some stable fats, okay, if we're going to use them for cooking, such as olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, and sesame oil. All right, so we've basically taken care of the food department. What haven't we discussed yet? Well, you're probably thinking about water, okay? Does that need to be mentioned? Yes, it does, because most people regard it as the forgotten nutrient, all right? And often we confuse thirst for hunger. In other words, we actually feel thirsty, but we go and eat instead. So perhaps try that. Each time you feel hungry, have some water instead. Why? Because it's the most essential nutrient in the body. In fact, it makes up 75% of our body composition. Okay, so effectively, you know, we're a big sack of water held in, or where the skin holds everything in, composed of a few cells, or 37 trillion, and the rest is water. So the body cannot store it. It prefers not to store it. It needs to be refreshed, and flushed on a regular basis, okay, to maintain the health of every cell. It also assists the circulatory system. In other words, it helps the blood stay liquid. All right. Now, if we have thick, sticky, dehydrated blood, that actually doesn't flow very well, and it causes the blood pressure to go up. So simply drinking water can reduce blood pressure. It helps eliminate toxins from the body, anything that comes through our diet or perhaps from our environment that we may breathe in. It helps eliminate that through the skin and through the urine. It also helps our body to regulate temperature. Okay, it also keeps the skin, the mouth, the nose, and the lungs moist, and indirectly that actually affects our immune system. Okay, so we become less likely to contract colds and flus every year, or anyway, at least allows them not to become too serious. It also helps with digestion, okay, by keeping everything moist, and helps prevent constipation. So if you're getting constipated, increase your water intake. Something else you may or may not have considered to maintain or slow down the effects of aging is meal timing and fasting. Okay, so this is not new, it's old, it's been around forever, it's been studied since the 40s, all right? So it's difficult to study calorie restriction in humans. However, in animal models, there is definitely improvements in lifespan that's been demonstrated. Now, what does calorie restriction or meal timing have to do with health span? Well, let's see what it does. It actually improves weight loss. It lowers dangerous fats in the blood. Okay, so it's going to improve your circulatory system and any cardiovascular related diseases. And it improves insulin sensitivity, so you're less likely to exhibit signs and symptoms associated with type 2 diabetes. It improves immune function, okay, so you're less likely to get colds and flus every year, and in fact, or even experience them in more severe than normal. And it also improves your hormone balance too. So let's take a look at a couple of examples here. We may have all heard of Michael Mosley. Okay, he's very popular on the ABC documentary series talking about the 5-2 diet. Okay, so that's eating whatever we want for 5 days and then restricting our calories over 2 days. That seems to be quite hard for a lot of people, so they've actually started studying meal timing. Now, what would be an example? Here you see 14-10. Well, that means eating food over 10 hours and then having a 14-hour break. So this seems to be more effective in women, the 14-10 model. So we might have breakfast at 9, we might have lunch at 2, and then we might have our dinner time at 7. So between 7 p.m. and 9 a.m. in the morning, that's a 14-hour break. So that's how we satisfy the 14-10 rule. For men, it seems to be that 16-8 rule applies. Okay, similar situation, except this time we eat at 7 p.m. and then we don't eat again until 11. All right, so then we've got 16 hours. So any way you want to set it up where you might have 3 meals, the space between the dinner time meal and the breakfast meal, if it's somewhere between 14 and 16 hours, looks like you're in good shape. Another thing you could do is one meal a day, okay, at any time. And we've already discussed Michael Mosley's 5-2. So there's a few examples of things you can do there. All right, we also need to discuss exercise and movement. Okay, so why? Because not only do we know that exercise improves cardiovascular function and also has an effect on our stress levels, but it also preserves our muscle mass, okay, because muscles tend to shrink with age. And we can start this anytime. We can reverse this muscle loss anytime at any age, all right? So don't be hard on yourself. If you haven't started yet, you can start tomorrow, all right? Now, the best form of exercise, particularly for reducing muscle mass, is strength training, okay? So that prevents muscle loss and it also improves weight loss, okay? 2 great benefits of strength training. It also reduces injury risk, and most of all, it also improves your balance, agility, and coordination. Now, remember I said before about my experience on the Cape to Cape track? Well, that was one of the things I noticed. The people that were at the back of the group were usually the ones that had the worst balance, the worst agility, and the worst coordination, all because they never practiced those things in their life. Okay, and we also know from research that one of the highest risks relating to our mortality and ending up in hospital is falling over. Okay, so we want to actually reduce that. Now, pardon for the interruption there. However, if you're injured, you can also do something. You've got stationary bike, you've got Tai Chi, yoga, and or swimming, other things you can do. All right, we talked about supplements earlier, a couple of bioactive substances that have been, that have demonstrated a lot of efficacy in the anti-aging literature is sulforaphane. Okay, so with regards to your vegetables, it's really important to eat a lot of cruciferous vegetables and broccoli sprouts, Brussels sprouts, broccolini, broccoli, etc. Okay, so they have this compound called sulforaphane, and it's one of the most powerful compounds known to man to reduce inflammation. In other words, reduce damage to your cells, right? And your body does this through the detoxification process. So it upregulates your ability to detoxify in your body. Next one is resveratrol. Okay, so this is a antioxidant, most associated with red color food, particularly blueberries, blackberries, etc. Okay, so it's that dark skinned fruit. So it's also regarded as an antioxidant, and it's got many benefits. Those being, it's really helpful in ameliorating discomfort in osteoarthritis, right? And it helps with the cardiovascular system. Pardon me. It also helps with the circulatory system. It helps with improving your skin as you age, and it helps improvement with your neuroprotection. Now, neuroprotection, what does that mean? Well, it relates to your cognitive function, okay? So we know about dementia, so it may actually slow down any decline in your cognitive function, all right? Very, very big benefits. Some additional bioactive substances, we have cinnamon. All right, you've probably heard of the cinnamon sugar that we put in our pancakes. Well, perhaps don't go and start eating heaps of that, but at least it's got some cinnamon in there. So cinnamon, in its raw form, helps support sugar balance and is an antioxidant and is very good as an anti-cancer agent. Next, we have berberine. Okay, I like to use this in a form of a supplement, particularly, as a herbal tincture. It's great for helping diabetics as an anti-diabetic agent. It's also helpful for cancer patients as well. All right. Next, we have our energy support nutrients. Okay, now energy support, that actually means helping the mitochondria in each cell in the body. So we have these little factories in our bodies that convert raw nutrients to energy, right, which allows us to get up and go and do things, and also help us sleep because we need energy for sleep, right? And these are alpha-lipoic acid, B vitamins, and coenzyme Q10, so keep them in mind. We also have omega-3s and curcumins such as turmeric that we can add to our cooking. These assist with our immune system, okay? So it's going to improve our ability to minimize our symptoms of colds and flus that we have every year. And lastly, our minerals. We have chromium, zinc, manganese, magnesium, and selenium, okay? All important to keep in mind. All right, so lastly, now that we've covered all that, I just want to give you an example of how this all fits together, okay, and the importance of it, and how most people don't consider themselves as important as the money and the time they spend servicing their car, all right? So if we were going to pretend or think about our body in terms of a car, your car needs the correct fuel to drive, right? Now, if you bought a brand new vehicle and it actually runs on fuel, let's say it's not electric, are you going to put 91 with 10% ethanol in there if actually instructions say you need to run 98? Well, you could if you want your car to actually run really badly and then eventually damage your engine. So why would you do that to your own body? Why would you put processed foods in there instead of beautiful, fresh fruit and veggies every day? Okay, this is what we're talking about. Your car also needs several other fluids, right, such as water, correct oil, and brake fluid. So we've talked about water, important for a car too. We want to make sure that's kept up to the vehicle, otherwise the vehicle overheats, just like I discussed before with regards to temperature regulation in the body. Okay, and our brake fluid needs to be regularly maintained. What happens if we're driving down the road and our brake fluid is less than adequate, then our car isn't going to be able to stop and we're going to end up in an accident. Now, like our body, we want to keep all the correct fluids, correct nutrients and everything coming forward so we can maintain a healthy, efficiently functioning body. All right, so like the vehicle, we need not only to give it the correct nutrients, but, you know, we can think about, we give our cars regular service and maintenance checks to make sure everything remains safe and efficient. So why wouldn't we do the same thing with the body? So perhaps think about, you know, getting a regular checkup, maybe once every 6 months or once every 12 months with your doctor, and or go and see a naturopath or a dietitian to get everything covered, and then you're pretty much ready to go. And you can know that you've done everything possible to take care of your health and well-being. Well, I hope that's cleared a few things up today. By all means, if you have any questions, send me an email, and I hope you got something out of that today. And in the meantime, let's all look forward to improving our health and well-being. Take care. See you next time.